Hey y'all, and welcome to the video. Today's video is going to be about things I look for on my truck before I set off on a long haul. Start things off, I'm going to do a little blow-by test, make sure there's no major issues. Here we are under the hood with the engine running. Don't see any issues, no smoke or anything. No surprise there, everything looks normal. Alright, first thing I like to do is check my maintenance logs, see when my last oil change and fuel filter change was. Truck is due for an oil change. We've got about 12,000 miles on this oil. And a lot of people were wondering about the oil intervals I'm doing. The lab analysis, I do the lab analysis, and my oil is doing really well. I could go much longer than this, probably 15,000, 20,000 miles if I wanted on the oil that I'm using, which is Schaefer's. And I'm just changing it at 12,000 because I feel like that oil's been in there long enough and I'm about to go on a long haul. So what am I doing? This truck I'm planning to take to North Carolina. It's going to be about 2,000 mile round trip. Shortly after, I'm literally going to be home for about 3 days. I'm going to take the 09 to South Florida. That's going to be probably like 1,800 mile round trip. So both trucks are going to have the same kind of thing done. Look over everything before we go. This truck could use a tire rotation soon. I will do that before the trip, but not today. It's not quite ready for that yet. So I've got about 10 days or so, 10, 12 days before I gotta leave, so still got time. I come over here and I start looking over the top of the engine just to make sure there's no oil leaking anywhere, make sure there's no leaks around the injector lines. I check the batteries cables to make sure they're tight, you know, and not too much corrosion. In fact, I don't see any corrosion on either battery. Pretty happy with this setup. No corrosion at all. These have just been, you know, I haven't paid any attention to them hardly. They've been on there for a year and a half, maybe a couple years. Back here, there's always a little dampness back towards cylinder 5 and 6. It's been that way since I've had the truck. You know, it doesn't seem to hurt anything and doesn't seem to be significant. It's like a sweat back there. I'm not really sure what it is. Sometimes it's nice to come down here and peek through your wheel well, or even pull your wheel well off so you can get a good look at the side of the block. Make sure you don't see any leaks there. I'll also check my windshield washer fluid level, and if I'm headed up north, I'll put some fluid in that can handle sub-freezing temperatures. That's about it up top. I would check my oil level if I wasn't changing the oil. Check on your trans level too. When you check your trans oil, if you have an automatic, you should see that it's not black or burnt. This is actually the best my fluids looked for a long time. If you're a subscriber to the channel, you'll know that my trans tends to get dark fluid pretty quick, and I'm really surprised it looks this good. Okay, coming down underneath of the truck, this is where things get interesting. I'll turn my flashlight on for you. So, once again, looking for leaks. That's the primary way I identify that something's up. Also inspect the belt, make sure there's no tears, or, you know, make sure it's not falling apart. Right here is where you would normally see a water pump leak. There's a little dampness there, but that's not a water pump leak, I don't think. Very common leak on these trucks. It's one I've dealt with like 4 or 5 times in the past, and solution is replace the water pump. I just did that not long ago, and so we should be good in that regard. I'm also looking at front end components, like there's your drag link end. That's really old. That's still stock. And then our tie rod ends. Everything, nothing looks broken or like it's gonna cause problems on the trip. A little bit of dampness there near the oil pan, but that's actually the blow-by tube right there, probably causing that little bit of oil there. Nothing to worry about, I don't think. Looking up the side of the engine, you can see way up there you got little coolant elbows and things like that. Those can get dried up and leaky. I mean, that's sitting right next to the exhaust manifold. That one's looking pretty good to me, so it's good to see. On to the tire rotation. Another thing I'm going to take a look at is the brakes. Make sure the brake pads are looking good, that they're not uneven wear or need of replacement soon. This truck just had a front brake job last winter. The rear brakes have been on there for about almost 4 years. May need a rear brake job soon, but probably not this winter. Probably not till spring. But I will check that when I do the tire rotation. Also, while you're doing the rotation, if your front end has a lot of miles on it, you may want to do this. I do this. Jack up the front end, check for play, make sure there's no play in your ball joints or your unit bearings. Another thing I'm going to do is grease up everything. So all the greasable components like ball joints, tie rod ends, my sway bar ends are greasable. I'm going to get the grease gun out here and grease those up. Okay, here goes a attempt to show the greasing process. Looks like what I'm looking at right now is the lower ball joint. These are greasable. And on this truck, the grease zerk is facing the front. My 09, I installed them facing the rear, which is probably the best. I'm coming in here with the grease gun and it'll kind of just pop on there. What I'll do is just a couple pumps. Well, one pump and it looks almost full. And that was about 1 1/4 pumps and it's already pushing some grease up. Now, I'll try and clean up a little bit of this because this turns into a real mess whenever you do get to work on your front end or brakes, having all that grease just laying around. So that's what I do, and I'll go around and do the tie rod ends right here, if you can see that. I'll do that one too. Alright, so far so good. Now to go back underneath, take a look in the transmission transfer case area. Make sure we don't have any problems. I don't think I showed you all the view of this side, driver's side of the block. That looks like the trans heat exchanger up there. A little bit of coolant sweat. Or would that be trans oil? I think that would actually be coolant. Not too worried about it. Everything else looking pretty good here. Back of the oil pan, dry. Rear main seal is good. A little bit of sweat here, but that's literally, it's been that way forever. Trans pan. I recently did that trans service. You can see the corner of the gasket there. It's a weird gasket. It's almost like a fabric, rubbery fabric. A little bit of sweat there. Still, I think my transmission has literally always been that way. Not really concerned there. Transfer case is dry as a bone. No problems on the transfer case. Here's your, if you have electronic shift into four-wheel drive, that's it right there. That's what does it. Finally, we're coming down underneath to take a look at the rear end. I know we're going to see something here. Let's take a look. Alright, so looking at the top, I've got a new speed sensor in the mail. That's the speed sensor right there. What I'm seeing here is a little bit the O-ring is just not holding perfectly well, and we're getting a little bit of dampness there. And you can even see as you come over the top how it's kind of flowing down the front of the diff. Now I checked my diff fluid level and it looks like I didn't even lose any fluid. Not too worried about this, but I am going to get that speed sensor replaced, which I've replaced it before because the old sensor was actually bad. This time it's the O-ring on the sensor. They're about 25 bucks on Amazon. You can even see there's like a, there must be like a vortex back here swirling air where, you know, the gear oil kind of leaks down and then it swirls back and actually hits the fuel tank here. But I did check the level a couple days ago and it's literally at the top. Looks like we didn't even lose anything. And gear oil has a way of making itself look like it's a big leak when it's really not. So overall, pretty happy with what I'm seeing on this truck. We'll get the rear speed sensor. It's a really minor thing. Probably could survive without it. Get that replaced. And of course, check the brakes when I rotate the tires. That's about it. I'm actually going to do this all over again in like 10 days. I'm just doing it now for the video. Because I'll probably put another 1,000 miles on it before I leave. If y'all want to see what the oil looks like, it doesn't look too bad. No evidence of coolant or anything infiltrating the oil. This is the one. This has 12,000 miles. You can see a little bit there. It's not opaque. It's not sooty, which is nice. But I can tell a little bit of a difference between when I did 11,000 mile interval versus 12,000. This is a little bit darker. Nothing beats putting some clean oil in your Cummins. Love that green color of this oil too. Really cool. Now that the oil change is done, looks like the truck burnt about a quart of oil. Let's see what this looks like. Where is our coolant? Oh, I'll probably have to tap that off when I get home. And I know some of the oil's left in the oil filter. This one's probably a little overfilled. That's about how much we have to account for. Rest, some of it's in here. Some of it may even still be in the engine. Not much though. So I would say we lost half a quart to a quart. Not too worried about it, but there was a time when I would get 2.8, 2.9 quarts out, or gallons out, and we're a little bit less than that this time. That's going to be it for me in this video. I'll see you in the next one.